If you want to get in the groove, mask up to get down, and make sure you stay 6 feet from stardom. Today, on A Place of Our Own, how to perform hard journalism with compassion and integrity, and how not to do it at the same time while pissing your colleagues and critics off. It's all coming up next. What's up? I'm Pete Sesko, and welcome to Thrift Store Rundown's Place of Our Own, a place designed for any millennial or baby boomer who wants to bring Hollywood home on a budget. As you know, every interaction you have with your favorite celeb or fellow fandom friend is a very important learning opportunity. So when it comes to educating yourself about the wonderful world of pop culture, we're all in this together. That's why TSI is your first and coolest teacher. What happened 19 years ago today needed any explanation. Before I go any further, TSR quietly extends its sympathies to all those whose emotional scars still haven't fully healed. If you were working in journalism at the time or were studying journalism, you might know that it's very difficult to find a right balance between real hardcore journalism needed to find out who was responsible and how to move forward when counterattacking, and compassionate journalism for those who haven't told their stories yet about losing their loved ones, and those whose stories have been told but have not yet fully been spread, and of course telling the stories of the perished themselves. This book explains all that and much more. This is David Westin's exit interview as former president of ABC News. This was purchased for $3.99 and for 50% off, and it is published by Sarah Crichton Books. By the way, true or false, she has any relation to the famed author Michael Crichton. Beyond 9/11, this also covers a wide variety of topics throughout David Westin's tenure at ABC News, good and bad. It's an education in journalism you don't want to miss. Coming up on the Thrift Store Rundown's Place of Our Own. Oh, there's a fire in this house right now. Whew, way to add some levity to these very dark times. In 1997, when David Westin became president of ABC News, the world seemed like a quiet place. Then came an impeachment, the war on terror, and the worst economy since the Great Depression. That would be President Clinton's impeachment and almost conviction after a full Senate trial due to his relations with Monica Lewinsky and a certain blue dress. The war on terror, with commendable and honorable coverage of 9/11 under the guidance of Westin and the anchorship, the true anchorship of Peter Jennings, and 2009, the worst economy since the Great Depression of the 1930s, I believe. Now, after almost 14 years of constant change, David Westin reflects on what he learned in his exit interview, so named because that is exactly what human resources divisions of businesses such as ABC News or any other business give to departing employees of the company, and David Westin was no exception. But upon reading this, I think you'll agree this is the most revealing exit interview you and I will ever read. Some of the other most important and perplexing events throughout David Westin's tenure at ABC News, which they covered: the tied 2000 presidential election between Gore and Bush, and it all came down to Florida. Conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, which nearly got a couple of ABC News personnel killed. The Sprint Bolt Spear campaign against Senator John Kerry. And other noteworthy highlights. Take a look at the chapter listing here. You remember Planet Earth 2000 and ABC 2000? One was a grand Peabody Award-winning triumph to usher in the new millennium. The other was a bogus attempt at getting a major heartthrob Oscar-nominated star to interview a sitting president about environmental concerns. That would be Leonardo DiCaprio and President Clinton. Planet Earth, my Leonardo DiCaprio problem, on page 58. Now, even though this book mentions several major news stories, the chapters here do not delve so much into the major news stories, event by event, but it rather analyzes how ABC News personnel researched, produced, and reported each major story and the backlash and praise that they received. They got a lot of praise and a George Foster Peabody Award for their extensive coverage of 9/11, nearly 100 straight hours of coverage. I would say this quote to begin this chapter, but it's best if we let the late, great Peter Jennings say it himself in his ABC News special report, The Day of Infamy, 9/11/01.
We do not very often make recommendations for people's behavior from this chair, but as Lisa was talking, I checked in with my children, and who are deeply distressed, as I think young people are across the United States. And so if you're a parent, you got a kid in some other part of the country, call them up, exchange observations.
I think you'll find that chapter quite compelling and very appropriate. Here is a photo inset, some photos in black and white, some in color. That is David Westin, the successor to ABC legend of both the news and sports division, Woon Allage. He invented Monday Night Football and Nightline, among several other excellent programs from his tenure. Here is David Westin presenting Barbara Walters, the female dean of journalism, with a Lifetime Achievement Emmy. And there they are, some of the wise men of ABC News, George Stephanopoulos, Ted Koppel, and Peter Jennings, along with Westin in Pasadena, California, announcing plans for the 2004 presidential race coverage, including the debut of their 24/7 streaming news channel, one very similar to the one they have now, ABC News Live, although they don't have the traditional bum 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 ABC News mnemonic. I guess they really wanted to distinguish themselves even further. This book is distinguishable on so many fronts because it covers the perplexing day-to-day challenges and trials and tribulations of running a major network news division like ABC News. It's an awesome study into the high-stakes world of broadcast journalism and the flag you're going to draw from working in it and working against it. This book drew praise from colleagues Diane Sawyer, George Stephanopoulos of This Week, and Robert Iger, now former President and Chief Executive Officer of ABC's parent company, the Walt Disney Company, plus outside praise from Walter Isaacson, author of Steve Jobs. For my taste, if there was a more equal balance between summarizing each major news event and analyzing how ABC News covered each major news event, then I would have given this all 5 claps. But it's a little off balance for me, so I gotta give it 4 out of 5 claps. For what it's worth, do you remember this tagline? Yeah, I did too. For good or for bad, David Westin gave a lot more truth to that tagline throughout his 14 years as president of ABC News. But ultimately, as he concedes in the conclusion of this book, it's you, the viewer, that will decide whether or not that tagline, more Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source, still reads true today, or is it just one big, cold, cruel, callous lie? Go West, young Dave! Class is dismissed for the day, but if you missed any classes, get caught up by clicking the link in the description below, which will take you to the Too Cool for School playlist, which also includes videos from last year's series. Thanks for joining us, and make sure to subscribe for when it comes to bringing Hollywood home and to the classroom on a budget. TSR is your first and coolest teacher. We'll see you next time on the flip side, on A Place of Our Own.